Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Class Reunion. I'm your host, Leanne Pepper, and the next two episodes are going to be a two-parter single episode about what else but class reunion, the topic of this podcast. But this time, it revolves around attending my class reunion. So over a course of a year, I have been working with a committee to plan and execute our 40th class reunion the first week of August. So the next two episodes are going to be kind of dedicated to how you feel and reasons why you may not want to attend your class reunion. And part two is going to be the art of avoiding politics. So stay tuned for that one. But today we are going to dive into the top 10 reasons on why people may have excitement and trepidation about attending their class reunion. And I know some of you who may be younger listening, I know there's a thought that like, oh my gosh, our 20th reunion is coming up and you feel older because so much time has passed since you graduated. But this is the 40th. And why is that so significant as a whole? The 40th is like a halfway point, unfortunately or fortunately, for all of us. We've lived a portion of our life already, and we have a remaining half to enjoy under our terms. We can't change where we are today, good or bad, but we'll all be in this next journey together. And it's important to reconnect under those circumstances. Like, let's talk about the past and what do we want out of the future? And for us, in our mindset, that's a more daunting task to do because the major things are already over with. And so where you are in your 20th year reunion thinking about, oh my gosh, I can't even believe what we'll be like in our 40th. Yeah, girl, we feel the same way. So it's what you make of it, right? And one of my mottos I've been using a lot is come as you are, not as you were. I think that's number one. I feel like, in that show Believe, where the soccer coach, he's got that above the doorway. And I just feel like we should have a sign above ours that says come as you are, not as you were. Number one, right off the bat, right? It's just a level playing field in the fact that 40 years have gone by for all of us. And that's a fact. And what do we want to get out of this? So I thought it would be not necessarily fun, but I thought there would be some open chat of the typical feelings that resonate when you say class reunion. And that is why I specifically chose to name this class reunion. I've mentioned it before, but while we are considered Gen X per se, if we have to pick a generation, I didn't want to fall down the rabbit hole of the trendiness behind Gen X, but rather class reunion to me is a timeless discussion on how you feel about revisiting the past, present, and future. And it does evoke a variety of emotions where sometimes Gen X is like, oh gosh, that was so cool. We had the Brady Bunch, etc. Class reunion, just that alone conjures up all sorts of feelings. And I liked that. I liked the challenge of let's explore conversations beyond the name tag. And I will say I have such a great advantage from having the podcast prior to the class reunion where I have re-engaged with my classmates ahead of time. And I have learned the value of that friendship, communication, trust, honesty that I truly cherish. And so I've been hoping that some of those conversations have resonated and brought to light that there's so much more to us than we either knew about or we learned about that was beyond the typical questions of where do you live, were you married, are you married, kids, grandkids. That's all good. It's not that it's a starter, right? But it's an appetizer. It's not the main meal. And we're going to go Michelin style for this reunion. We're really taking the 40th to a different level of reconnection because the fact is from here on out, the 45th and the 50th is going to get smaller. People are, more likely to not want to travel. I just felt like, or we all did on the committee, that this 40th should be a really stopgap of like, let's hold on to moving too fast again and just take a night for reflection. It's one night. Actually, we have a few days of things planned, but the main basis of the one night that people are going to be together is to reconnect. We are in a social media storm, and it includes us grown-ups. I can't get over how many times I'm in a restaurant and I see a couple together, my age, and they're on their phones. And I'm probably taking a picture of them on my phone, to be honest. So I'm part of the problem. But I can't believe how many people in our age group are just as bad as the younger generation. We can criticize the younger generation, but we're right along with them in our dependency on technology, social media, and that is our form of connection. I know it's nice to have birthday wishes on Facebook. I think it's a lovely gesture, but it is really not a connection. It's a keyboard strike, right? Keyboard stroke, I should say. And I'm guilty of still feeling inferior in a lot of cases. I still look at people's perception of their life and think, gosh, I haven't traveled there and I haven't done that in my life. And I know it's not valid, but it's hard, even at our age, I think, to say that we don't care about other people's photographs, because we do. And that is where I'm just trying to demystify what we see on a screen, in a pixel, in a text. We create our own dialogue. We create our own tone from people's text messages. And we really can lose a lot in communication by doing that. So I'm excited for the challenge, because it will be a challenge, for us to put our phones down and have conversations with one another that are meaningful and pause and have reflection. So, number one, listen, feeling judged by your former classmates, that's number one. Bingo. I mean, that's what prevents a lot of people from hitting the ticket purchase button. Or if you've bought a ticket, you're still walking up to that doorway as a kid from the 80s, feeling like you may be judged by your former classmates. And the fact is, you really want to connect with people. It's just that you do have that fear of being judged, a fear of not being recognized, and also a fear of being recognized, right? I mean, if somebody says, oh man, Steve, you're exactly like I remember. Well, maybe that's not what that person really wants to hear, is to think that they're exactly like they were in high school. So it's a combination of both, not being recognized and being recognized as a school bully, or however we want to initially address someone. I caution that we don't use language that takes us back in time of putting everybody in a category, right? Looking the same isn't a compliment or not a compliment. It's just, let's move on from those types of judgments right off the gate from looking at the name tag and making an assumption. Our name tags are going to be helpful. I mean, because the fact is, we shouldn't be embarrassed if we don't remember somebody's sight unseen. We're talking 40 years. There's no way you should look anything like your yearbook. And if you do, I want the name of your physicians and your medical records and your vitamins. But anyway, but yeah, we're going to need those. We're going to need those name tags. So get over the fact that you feel like you're supposed to recognize someone or that they should recognize you. It's up to us as adults to have the name tag on with our high school photo to just jog somebody's memory. I had somebody say to me, you don't look anything like I remember. And I was like, yeah, because I'm blonde. I was brunette in high school and now I'm 100% gray. Surprise. So it's easier for me to be blonde. Number 2, comparing life achievements. How else can that be? That's right underneath how you look. feeling awkward about that. Do you feel you have the right to share your successes? Absolutely. Is it important to recognize not everybody's in that same boat? Yes, it is. There's going to be some awkward conversations. I was thinking about this. The 40th reminds me a lot of like our 10-year, in that we're almost reverting backwards again. In our 10-year reunion, you had people that didn't go to college. You had people that were still finishing college. You had people that were on their master's and doctorate, people married, not married, kids, no kids. There was a huge variety of where everybody was in life. I'd say 5 and 10 year. The 40th will be the same. People will be retired. People like myself will be working till I'm 150. You're going to have a huge discrepancy again on where everybody is in their life. And it's just something that should be celebrated, talked about, supported. It really is going to be all over the map. There will be people there that have never been married by choice, not by choice. There will be people there that are married by choice, not by choice, and divorced, and children, and no children, and grandchildren. And there will be children with some disabilities that we should talk about. We should align our stories together. We've got which I've learned from a lot of parents with autistic children in our school, all different levels, which is what's taught me a lot about the autistic community. They should reconnect. They should be able to bond over that conversation and have a great connection and support system. That's what this is about, is leaving the reunion at this time in our life, knowing that, and I hate to sound like a song, but you've got a friend, you've got somebody to support you for the next few years of our lives that will entail all sorts of bumps and changes. It's going to be health issues. There's going to be relocations by choice, not by choice. We're still going to experience a lot of life, and the ability to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that you weren't really close with in high school, but you reconnected at the reunion, is going to be priceless. It's going to be priceless. Number 3, the fear of not fitting in. It's the same as high school. I do think that if you're on the shy side and you were shy in high school, it's going to be just as difficult to start a conversation this time around. But you've got the fact that we are bound by history. You don't necessarily have to start a conversation from a high school experience. We had the bicentennial. We had the attempt to go metric, right? Remember that? We were going to go on the metric system. We've had Nixon resignation. I'm not a crook. We've had, we've had 9/11. We've had the Challenger. We've had historical events that bind us together, whether we had a school story or not. We are bound by our history. And you can bring up those events instead of trying to feel like you need to bond by a classroom experience that you don't recall having. So there are ways to just immediately reduce any kind of fear of fitting in by bringing up historical events and not necessarily a school experience. It can be inclusive of our generation, our conversation of our generation. Number 4, concerns about physical appearance. I mean, really, it should be number 1, but I do think, judgment's number 1, and judgment based off of our physical appearance, let's be honest. So, that can strike a fear of loneliness and exclusion just by that alone. And I don't know how to combat this because I feel the same way. I'm extremely nervous. But one thing that I've had the luxury with the podcast is I have evolved over the years, and I've looked rough on some days. I've looked okay on other days. I am so focused on my guest and excited in my conversation with whoever I've had the opportunity and pleasure to interview. I truly forget about myself. I truly, even though it's it's audio for those of you that follow on YouTube. It's audio and video on YouTube. And I did that because it was me saying, hey, we're all where we are in life at this point, and let's celebrate it. And I feel like everyone's kind of gotten over it once we get into conversation, because you can really lose yourself in conversation and forget about your angles and forget about whatever when you're just listening to one another. It's a beautiful thing. So I don't know how to really eliminate it, because I think people are going to still walk over that threshold and feel that. But it's more important that you come as you are, not as you were. And I've said that as my little tagline, but I truly mean it. Come as you are, not as you were. And have a dress code that's comfortable for you. I think that we were asked a number of times, like, what should we wear? And I think we never really put out a formal statement, because you will only feel as comfortable as you are dressed. And it's how you normally feel good. It's not meant to put on something that you've never worn before and be obsessed or concerned about that all night. Don't switch your game up to the point where it's all you're thinking about versus being comfortable and enjoying yourself, because you will get lost in conversation. I know it doesn't maybe seem like it now, but you will. And so be comfortable. Be very comfortable. Number 5. This is more like something that is for the organizer, right? Our committee has gone out of their way. Now, might not be great, but we've gone out of our way to not make it a boring event. We anticipate people walking away with some funny moments, some thoughtful moments. It will be a nice presentation of our past that we've not done typically at a reunion. There's a lot of reunions which have been wonderful, but unless you really are in love with cheese and crackers and walking around, I think those were all like the early days of reunions, which were very typical, nothing wrong with them. But at this 40th, it's a time to really reflect, and we've gone out of our way to have some organized events. We have a boatload of people from out of town. So this, for people that aren't from our high school, it's based in Michigan, and a lot of people have moved. And so we created 3 days worth of reconnection before the actual big day, just to calm the nerves, to do fun activities that aren't all, at the hotel, and fun and engaging activities so that it suits everyone, right? So we don't want it to be just you fly into town from California. We've got people coming from all over for one day and have it not be organized. I think that's a fear that people have. And so I will say that while I don't want to say it's going to be fantastic, it's going to be your personal takeaway. We've gone through the efforts to try and make it a very special 40th year of reflection. Number 7, people don't like to come because of their busy schedules. And I think that that's very justifiable. There's been an RSVP pattern of respect where people have said, I'm unavailable at that time. And I would say it's probably 50-50. I do think there's people who have specific things that are keeping them from coming. And I completely understand and value that, because it's difficult we have over 300 classmates. You're just not going to be able to get everybody conjoined at the right time, at the right week. It's just hard to do. So I understand that. But I know in my heart of hearts, there are some people that were on the fence and just made that easier transition to say, I'm unavailable. We respect it. We accept it. But if there's a change of heart, and if there is a way to just allow yourself a couple of hours in one evening, I don't think you'll regret it. I think it's listen, I say I'm busy a lot. We all do. And we're not. We just have chosen not to go. Sometimes I regret it. Sometimes I don't. And that's just going to be a personal thing for you. But I just, a busy schedule is just putting a priority of time somewhere else. And again, I get it. But we'd love to see you there if you're on the fence and you've said you're busy and you change your mind. Come on down. We don't care. We'd love it. Number 8, perceived as outdated or irrelevant. Isn't that the truth? I have a few things up my sleeve to change the whole perception of class reunion. Will I ever achieve them? I don't know. They're my personal goals. But I feel that because I mentioned earlier, the social media has taken on our replacement for connections, that class reunions do appear to be outdated or irrelevant. We do have such an easy way to connect on Facebook or text people or whatever. And sometimes that's enough. And people will say, oh yeah, I heard from them, or yeah, I talked to them. You didn't talk to them. You sent a text message with them. That is not the same. And so I think that there's a theory out there that the actual standing around and chatting with people in person is outdated. Is it irrelevant? No, because I feel that when you see someone's reaction, you feel the tone, you feel their presence, the tone of their voice, the length of effort it takes to have a conversation face to face increases your communication and trust with someone. If I'm able to really see someone and hear their tone of voice, I'm going to understand what they're saying in a far more impactful way than if I just read it on a text message. It's the truth. That's, I can hear it, see it, feel it, and understand it better than I can in 140 characters. Number 9, travel and inconvenience. Isn't that the truth? And like I said, we, for some reason in Michigan, had this huge exodus of classmates that went to Chicago, majority of them. I'd say we have at least, I think we have 40 people or more in Chicago. We have people down here in Florida, which I discovered from reconnecting with people. I can't believe how many people were right in my backyard and I didn't know it, which is a beautiful thing. I laughed and made a comment to a friend, Tracy. I said, I can't believe we're both in Florida and have to travel all the way up to Michigan to reconnect and say hello. But I'll tell you what, when we come back to Florida, I will be seeing her. I've tried to get together with a few people that are in Florida for that purpose of like, listen, you're right here. We should be seeing each other face to face. So travel is very, very understandable. But, it does allow you to have that connection that you wouldn't have had otherwise, so that if somebody is going out to California, they've seen you at the reunion, what a thrill to be able to know where everybody is located and still continue that connection as people travel on through life. I just think that's a beautiful thing. And number 10 reason why people don't like to go is being overwhelmed with digital communication. And this is probably for us older folks, right? It's not the young youth group people, but we've had to explore all of our options of communication with our class because we have people that are absolutely void of all social media. Respect that. We then get improper emails, which unfortunately allows us to not communicate with a lot of people. We have those that only want to speak through LinkedIn. We have those that responded only by text. We have those that only want to work through Facebook. And so we're as unique of a generation as we were growing up. We have a variety of old and young. We have, and I don't mean old people, I'm just saying we use old technology, or we have people that, like myself, are on TikTok, better or for worse. But There's a variety of how we all work in the society with the opportunity for technological advancements. We're just all different. And some people can find that to be overwhelming. How do I, purchase on a ticket on Venmo if you've never used Venmo, if you've never used PayPal? Or do you only use those and you don't have a check and you don't use credit cards? There is such a variety, and that too can be a deterrent to pulling the trigger on getting a ticket because you're just not sure how to go about doing it. And I'd like to think that we've done our best to help you through that process by giving you a variety of ways to pay, but there still could be anxiety around it. Um, Economics play a very big role on the high cost of associated with attendance. And that's why we also try to have a variety of events that could be offered to everyone. We have a free picnic, a free tour at the school. We do have the Tigers game, a baseball game for something more casual. And then we have the formal evening. But we did that with the intent that, hey, we should offer a variety of ways to reconnect under all different circumstances for people. And when you do a class reunion, whether it's ours upcoming or you're listening to this and you have a pending reunion, that's something you need to think about. Because like I mentioned, we're back right to square one, almost like we were in the beginning of the reunion at 10 years. We're going to have a discrepancy of where everybody is in life. And there should be nothing that holds people back from reconnecting based on cost, location, and lack of agenda, right? Those are all things that are controlled by the committee that puts it together. And I think if you look at this list, it's all very valid and it's probably 100% across the board. People relate to at least 8 out of 10 of these. I mean, easily. And we're with you. We're with you on it. We totally get it and understand. But I just think that this is our final rodeo here. And we can't wait for a different event to ever recreate what we had at our 40th. Where we are right now today with the ability health-wise to reconnect, we should do it. We've had, to put together a list of those students that have passed, and it's humbling, really humbling. So I think when we just kind of take away some of those top 10 reasons of why not to come, I think there's plenty of reasons that we've stated that we hear you, we understand, but that's the majority of everybody. It won't matter if you think somebody's walking in confident because they are skinnier than you. They're still walking in with insecurities and memories of the past and whatever it is. So we're going to leave all of that at the door. And we just want to encourage you to have a conversation beyond the name tag and make this a memorable 40th of a reflection of our history and time together, classes, laughter, sleepovers, skinny dipping, buying candy at the store, the music that we enjoyed, the sitcoms that we enjoyed, the places that we went. Canada, we were all fortunate to live right next to another country. Not many states can say that. So there's so many cool things about going to Canada. You don't have to feel the pressure of pulling out of your butt some type of memory from fifth period. You just don't have to put yourself in that pressure cooker. There's so many funny things we can talk about in 40 years of our educational life since high school that bind us regardless. Like I said, that's part of our history, and it doesn't have to be something that was a purposeful connection on a deep level that you need to recall from high school. I've had that where people have said, gosh, I don't remember much. And the more you start talking, the more they'll start recalling. But it does center around something that was in common as an event, right? We remember our football team at the Silver Dome. We remember the toga party that was in our yearbook. You didn't have to attend, you remember it. Like there's just events in time that you can recall that are fun for everybody. So I'm going to get a little deeper in part 2 because we're going to talk about politics, and I don't mean in a bad way. I'm going to give tips and tricks for anybody listening on how to redirect that conversation because it will be hard to avoid. We are in an election year, and instead of not talking about it at all, I'm going to discuss tips and tricks of how to redirect the conversation because we have one night, guys. We have one night to reconnect. And if we're asking you to go beyond the name tag and put your phones down, it also means put your opinions down, put your expectations down, put your past hurt down. All of that should be disarmed at the door so that all you hear is the sound of our own laughter. So this is my podcast, and I hope all of this holds up by the time we reconnect. I will have a guest with me after our class reunion to do a debrief of what really went down. But this is me being hopeful, optimistic, and looking forward to having a celebration with all of my classmates. Here's to our 40th reunion. I'll see you next week.